Hello and welcome, everyone. We're so glad you can join us today to celebrate National Apprenticeship Day and the official national launch of the National Apprentice Fund, brought to you by Jobs for the Future with the support of Google.org. My name is Christy Specht, and I'm a director within the Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning at JFF, and I oversee this amazing fund. This is an exciting moment. We know that apprenticeships are a proven pathway to great jobs, but for many apprentices, financial barriers stand in the way of completing their apprenticeship program. And that's why we're here today. In the next hour, we'll introduce you to the National Apprentice Fund, walk through the application process, and answer your questions about how this fund can support apprentices nationwide. Before we get started, a quick housekeeping note. Please feel free to drop in any questions you have to the chat at any time throughout the session. We'll be collecting them and answering them as many as we can throughout the Q&A at the end. Today, you'll hear from leaders at JFF, Google.org, and our partner organizations as we walk through an overview of the new National Apprentice Fund, the partnership that made it possible, and how you can help spread the word and support apprentices in accessing this critical resource. We'll also share tips on how to apply and wrap up with a live Q&A. So let's dive in. It's my honor to introduce Vince Kohler, the Vice President of the Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning at JFF. He champions initiatives that emphasize how states and partners can leverage apprenticeship to enhance economic growth and expand accessible career pathways. So Vince, I'm passing the mic over to you.
Thanks, Christy, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm Vince Kohler, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to today's discussion on a partnership that's not just about funding apprentices, but reshaping how we think about equity and access in apprenticeship. At JFF's Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning, where frankly every day is Apprenticeship Day, National Apprenticeship Day, we're focused on scaling these proven models to new industries, supporting program design and implementation, and most importantly, helping diverse populations connect to quality jobs. The National Apprentice Fund is a powerful step forward as we see it. This fund goes beyond financial assistance. It's about building an apprenticeship system where success isn't determined by your zip code or economic background. We're prioritizing high demand sectors: healthcare, tech, clean energy, advanced manufacturing, and education, where apprenticeships are growing, but financial supports remain scarce. We also see this as a learning opportunity. What is it that helps apprentices not just enroll, but persist and complete? And how can we apply those lessons to strengthen the entire ecosystem? To explore this further, I'm honored to be joined by two visionary leaders. First, Maria Flynn, my boss, President and CEO at JFF, who's dedicated her career to driving inclusive and equitable system change in workforce and education. And Nina Ong, apprenticeships lead at Google, whose team with Google.org is building pathways to expand opportunity through innovative learning and development programs across the globe. Please join me in welcoming Maria and Nina. And Maria, let's start with you. JFF has been at the forefront of apprenticeship innovation for years. What makes this fund different, and what do you hope it achieves?
Yeah, thanks so much, Vince. It's great to be here today. And hi, Nina. It's always wonderful to see you. And thank you to everyone who has joined us today. It's really a wonderful way to be celebrating National Apprenticeship Day together. So at Jobs for the Future, our mission is all about economic advancement and opportunity. And a few years ago, we launched a really bold North Star goal, which is that by the year 2033, we want to see 75 million American workers who face barriers to economic advancement working in quality jobs. And we know that apprenticeship is one of the most effective tools to drive economic opportunity and to help us reach this big, bold North Star goal that we have. It's an earn and learn pathway into stable, high quality, in demand careers. But through our work that's been dedicated to scaling apprenticeships over the past few years, we've often seen how financial barriers like transportation or healthcare or just paying the rent can stop apprentices from completing their programs. And that's why today's launch of the National Apprentice Fund with support from google.org is so meaningful. We see this as a really kind of built for purpose solution to this problem that we consistently see in the field. We're also really excited that the enthusiasm and momentum around apprenticeship continues to grow. As Vince mentioned, apprenticeship is something that JFF has been focused on for many decades, and it's exciting for me to see just how the enthusiasm, the excitement, the understanding, and the demand for apprenticeship has continued to grow over that time, and particularly in the past couple of years. And just this week, or last week, the White House signed 2 executive orders supporting the expansion of registered apprenticeship with the goal of having 1 million new or active apprentices. We must ensure that apprentices not only have access to quality programs, but also the tools and the resources that they need to help them persist in those programs and complete those programs. And so this fund really helps remove those financial barriers and provides the kind of wraparound support that apprentices truly need. So we at JFF really believe that this initiative will not only help people finish their programs, but it's also going to help us understand better what works and why. And that insight will be critical as we continue to work with our partners across the country to scale these solutions nationally. So I just want to take a moment to thank Vince and the whole team at JFF, particularly the folks at the Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning, for their dedication to this work over so many years. And a big thank you to Nina and the whole team at Google. I'm excited about this latest chapter and what has been a really terrific partnership between our organizations over many years.
Thank you, Maria. And Nina, turning to you, google.org has made a significant investment in workforce development. What drew you to apprenticeship and this fund in particular?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Vince, Maria, Christy, and the entire JFF team. Happy National Apprenticeship Day. Just likewise, we absolutely mirror the sentiment. We're so thrilled to be a part of this launch. At google.org, which is Google's philanthropic arm, our mission is really to apply Google's innovation, research, and resources to promote progress and expand opportunity for everybody. And we recognize the power of apprenticeships in supporting this mission. Through its work and study model, apprenticeships can create accessible pathways to well-paying jobs and economic mobility with benefits for really both the worker and employer, so ultimately communities all around. And Google has invested in apprenticeship programs around the world since 2017, increasing access for workers while developing and expanding talent for the broader global workforce. Our US program has welcomed hundreds of apprentices since 2020 as part of the Department of Labor's Registered Apprenticeship Program. We are training on the job at Google, immersing in Google Career Certificates, and now the AI Essentials course as part of the classroom learning. To date, more than 90% of Google's apprentices have completed the program successfully and earned their Department of Labor credential, and close to 80% of apprentices have found meaningful, high-demand, high-paying jobs within a year after their apprenticeship. Part of this is we have gained so many valuable learnings and insights from running this program as a sponsor. We know at the heart of all of this is the apprentice, and we have had the privilege of getting to know a lot of incredible individuals who sought out an apprenticeship as a viable pathway. And we know that journey may look different for every single learner. Apprentices can face a number of obstacles that decrease the likelihood of completing their program. Things like juggling work and being the primary caretaker for their family, potentially a lack of access to reliable transportation and consistent childcare. And as you all mentioned, research has shown that financial barriers are a primary reason why apprentices don't complete their apprenticeship programs. We believe that everyone should have the opportunity to develop the necessary skills to pursue a pathway to good paying jobs, regardless of your background, whether you're early in your career, shifting careers, and anything in between. We hope that this fund supports individuals directly. It aids in overcoming financial barriers and unexpected challenges that may come up so that they can focus on completing that technical instruction and on-the-job training and attaining a transformative job opportunity. To your point, Maria, we also hope this project generates insights and shines a light on the potential for industry for really broader research, investments, and solutions for the entire ecosystem.
Thanks, Nina. We so appreciate that commitment. Can you share why you decided to partner with JFF on this initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. When we began the search for a partner to really bring this vision to life, we knew our long-term collaborators at JFF were well-positioned to embark on this journey with us. Google.org has worked with you all on a variety of social impact projects since 2018. Most recently, we supported research for the Training Provider and Small Business Insights Toolkits, which has tracked the initial rise in demand for AI skills across industries, not just in tech jobs. And it really provides further findings and recommendations for both workforce training providers and small businesses. As we got into brainstorms with your team, it became really clear that JFF also has a unique understanding of the apprenticeship ecosystem and the ability to really build solutions at a systems level. We know that this team has a track record for innovation and driving impact and delivering it with high quality while also having a pulse on emerging trends. With this grant, JFF will focus on those high demand sectors that Vince, you called out, such as healthcare, tech, energy, manufacturing, and education. And most importantly, you all demonstrated a keen understanding and a deep care for the apprentice. And that's really who this grant is for. So I will just end by saying, I'm sincerely excited about the potential impact of this initiative. I'm really proud of what we put together. Thank you to the entire community for being here today. I also want to extend appreciation for Mike. Thank you in advance for lending your voice and sharing your perspective. And lastly, of course, thank you to Maria, Vince, Christy, and the entire JFF team for having Google today, for working with us to make this possible, and for continuing to be leaders in this space.
Thank you so much, Nina. Obviously, the interest in this webinar and in the fund already since its launch shows that there is both a demand and an interest, and I think that leadership among other employers and showing a way forward is so important. It's a big, bold step. And we hope that everyone tuning in walks away with a deeper appreciation for what's possible when we do the investment in people and the systems that support them. So let's continue building an apprenticeship that works for everyone. And with that, I will pass it back over to Christy to continue the conversation.
Great.
Thanks all.
Everyone.
Thank you so much, Maria, Vince, Nina. That was so fantastic. We are so thrilled about this fund. It's such an exciting project to have, and we love this partnership. So thank you. So let's talk about the fund itself, right? Why we're all here today. So through the National Apprentice Fund, JFF is going to be providing $2,800 in one-time financial assistance to up to 750 registered apprentices across the country. The fund is incredibly simple to apply for. We've intentionally left it pretty open so that a wide range of apprentices across different occupations across the US can apply for this. So this support is aimed at registered apprentices who are 18 or older, currently enrolled in a registered apprenticeship program, facing financial barriers that can prevent the apprentice from completing their training. And the fund is focusing on supporting apprentices in new and emerging occupations and industries across the US. So this can include cyber, security, AI, e-commerce, advanced manufacturing, healthcare, IT, hospitality, clean energy, education, different occupations that haven't traditionally been used as apprenticeship models over generations. These funds can help cover things like tools, equipment, transportation, childcare, housing, other essentials, as well as maybe even tuition, right? For some of you that are going through programs that need to make sure that your tuition is kept up for your RTI. This fund can cover costs that are vital to apprenticeship program completion. And in return, recipients commit to staying enrolled, making a good faith effort to complete their program, and participating in a brief evaluation process that we can track impact. So if you have specific questions about eligibility, again, please put them into the chat so that we can get to them at the end. But let's move ourselves forward. So past eligibility, let's move ourselves forward into introducing my colleague, Mike Frame, who is the Executive Vice President at MACNY, the Manufacturers Association. So Mike brings decades of experience in workforce development and higher education leadership, including roles at SUNY Polytechnic Institute, Florida State University. At MACNY, he leads statewide initiatives like the Manufacturers Intermediary Apprenticeship Program, which we partner with, we love, and the Real Life Rosies, New York's first direct entry pre-apprenticeship program in advanced manufacturing. So his leadership is instrumental in building inclusive, high-impact career pathways across the state. Please join me in welcoming Mike Frame. Mike?
Thank you, Christy. The Manufacturers Intermediary Apprenticeship Program is the collaboration of 9 organizations to provide group sponsorship for registered apprenticeship trades in over 25 different trades in manufacturing and information technology across New York State. Since inception, we have supported over 105 companies and over 1,000 apprentices to help them gain the skills and education necessary to succeed. So as a group sponsor, we've seen firsthand how powerful apprenticeships can be, not just in filling critical roles for our members, but in building a stronger, more resilient workforce for our communities. We've also seen what leads to successful programs, and it starts with intentional employer engagement. What that means is investment in people and a willingness to support apprentices beyond just on-the-job training. And that's why efforts like the National Apprenticeship Fund are so important. Removing financial barriers increases the likelihood that apprentices will complete their programs and transition into long-term, high-quality roles. Employers have a unique opportunity to be champions of this work, not only by hiring apprentices, but also by identifying and supporting those who could benefit from the National Apprenticeship Fund. At MACNY, we believe so strongly in the power of registered apprenticeships that just last year we began our own program. We currently have 4 of our team members in 3 different trades, and we'll continue to grow opportunities internally and for our members. So I want to thank Maria, Vince, Christy, and the JFF team, and Nina and the Google team for this investment in registered apprenticeship and for the opportunity to be here today. Finally, I would encourage all employers and partners listening today to use and share the referral form that we'll be highlighting. Together, we can expand opportunity, increase retention, and make apprenticeships work better for everyone.
Thank you so much, Mike. We appreciate you joining us for this really fun fund. So now we're going to move into tips on how to apply and some best practices that we can recommend. First, our first recommendation is always to review eligibility, right? And that is on our landing page and very clear. And so we're really hoping that individuals can assess that first. Second step is to gather documentation. So such as a driver's license, proof of enrollment in a registered apprenticeship program. These are documents that we will need to collect if you are actually receiving the fund. Third, prepare your responses. So within the application, we do have some open-ended responses. You'll be asked to briefly describe how financial barriers like housing, transportation, childcare, etc., are affecting your ability to complete your apprenticeship. Here are our top 3 tips to really help you strengthen your response. So one is to be detailed. Share your specific challenges. Please tell us how these financial barriers are affecting your ability to complete your program, or even just continue your program right now. Emphasize need. Explain how this support is essential to your success. And also, you can explain how you would use these funds, right? That's important too. And make the connection. Show how overcoming this barrier will help you stay enrolled and complete your apprenticeship program. The final step is to submit your application, which is through our Americans with Disabilities Act's compliant platform. It's a really simple application, and we're really, really glad to keep it that way, right? We want this to be accessible to as many people as possible. Applications are currently open, and we are reviewing them on a rolling basis. Once you submit your application, it will be reviewed within about 2 to 4 weeks. Afterwards, we'll reach out to you with the decision. If you're selected to receive an award, we'll ask you to submit a few required financial documents before we can release any funds. And we will also confirm your status as an active registered apprentice. Once we have everything we need, financial support will be dispersed within about 4 to 6 weeks. So from start to finish, we're looking at the full process is typically taking about 6 to 10 weeks. And the fund will remain open until November 2026 or until all the funds are exhausted. So whichever comes first. So again, we have $2,800 as a maximum dollar amount per apprentice, 750 apprentices total. So again, the funds will be available until we exhaust them. So now let's open it up to Q&A. My colleague, Erica Acevedo, who's a director at JFF, and I are going to take some questions. Erica, I'm going to pass it to you.
Thank you, Christy, and really excited that we've been able to share so much detail already. I know that there's been a lot of questions coming through the chat. I think one of the themes I'm seeing is, if there's a particular apprenticeship program that is that would be considered part of a that would be accepted. So I've seen things like early childhood. Is there specific occupations within industries? We want to make it clear that the fund is open to all registered apprenticeship programs. There is on the back end a rubric. I think I saw another question if there's a rubric that these applications will be scored against. There is, and so when we mention that there is a focus on new and emerging industries, those industries will receive like a slightly higher point system. But all registered apprenticeship program participants or folks that apply will receive at least the 10 points. If you are in a new and emerging industry registered apprenticeship program, then you will receive 15 as an example. So, but it still makes you competitive, if you're in a registered apprenticeship program period. So that's wanted to address that question. We're also seeing, we saw a question around, do you need a high school diploma, or can you be a senior in high school as long as you're 18 to participate? You do need you do need to be 18 to participate. We don't specify the high school diploma specifically, but so long as you're able to provide that documentation that you're in the registered apprenticeship program, so long as you're 18, you can still apply for this fund. Christy, do you want to take any of the ones that we're seeing?
I'm happy to. So I see a question about how the current administration feels about the National Apprentice Fund that is admitting a commitment to equity and inclusion. So I can't speak to how the current administration would feel about the fund. However, I do know that the current administration is very invested in the completion of apprentices, right? And it has committed to registered apprenticeship. So we see this as complementary to the current administration's efforts to make sure that we are expanding and utilizing registered apprenticeship as a key talent driver. So I feel like it's complementary in that vein. And I'll also tackle timeline for the application of the funds. So this is rolling. We don't have basically we have the funds available until they are gone. So it's based on the uptick in usage from the field, actually. Please, one thing to consider with that, right? This is a national fund. So this is open to all 50 states, all apprentices that are currently in a registered apprenticeship program. So keep that in mind when you are applying. You do need to be an active apprentice. So unfortunately, if you are an individual who's finished their program, this is not eligible. You're not eligible for this. You do need to be in an active program. I'm looking at our list. I see people asking about specific occupations if they can apply. So all occupations can apply. Again, we are focusing on new and emerging occupations. However, we're not excluding any occupations from this. So please, if you do feel you have the need, we recommend you apply to this fund and explain why you need these funds and how they're really going to support your journey as an apprentice.
Well, I see a really good question around is the funding available to returning citizens? And the answer is yes. So long as you again are part of a registered apprenticeship program, if you're a returning citizen, you're able to apply. There's nothing that would not make your application qualify for it. Another really good question here is what kinds of details can apprentices share in their application that will make it strong? The question is if there's a rubric on how the applications are being evaluated by whom. So the applications are being evaluated by JFF's project team that's leading this work. We developed a really great rubric that takes into account points across all of the questions that are being asked. And we, read those very thoroughly and assess kind of based on criteria under each of the questions that are asked. Specifically, like we do recommend for the open-ended questions, as much detail as possible is better. Tie the need, your need to kind of the financial barriers that you might be experiencing to, the most you can in writing throughout the application. I don't have the questions off the top of my head, but I think, to signal like what the impact of these funds will be for you to complete this program. Yes, spell that out in as much detail as you can, and demonstrate that the potential impact of the funds.
I'm happy to jump in, Erica, too. There's a couple more I see that are great questions. So someone asked, currently their apprentices need financial aid to start school. Does accepted to their program qualify as in the program? So it does not. They need to actually be in the program as active apprentices. And whoever, please, if somebody, whoever did actually drop that question in, we also will have an email that is attached to our website that you can please email more detailed questions if you have them. Also, what about those who are programs such as WIOA? Are they still able to apply? So if your registered apprenticeship program is funded through WIOA, or supported through WIOA, that's fine. We have no issue with how certain programs are being funded or what other services an apprentice is receiving. That's okay. We are really just interested in supporting really those bare eligibility requirements, right? So they're in a registered apprenticeship program, they're 18 and over, and that they're focused in these new and emerging occupations as priority. Of course, we are taking all other occupations as well.
I see a really good question around if it's I'll say the question, how do apprenticeship programs themselves apply for multiple apprentices? So we've set this application up so that it's the apprentice themselves that needs to apply. So there was a referral form that was linked in the chat when Mike was encouraging our partners to make those referrals of current apprentices. So if you list those apprentices in that form, a link will go to them, to their email, saying that, we think that you'd be a great fit for this. You should apply for this. But it will be the apprentices themselves that need to apply for the program. So not the apprenticeship program applying on behalf of the applicants. It will then be, there are a couple of questions here around like, will it be the sponsors responsible for dispersing the funds? No, it will be JFF dispersing the funds directly to the apprentice. So it will go directly to the apprentice. There will be no kind of middleman in that sense. And then what's another one here? Yes, there's a question around, is this funding taxable? So this is taxable income essentially that apprentices will be receiving. So you do need to account for that as well.
When I see a question around pre-apprenticeship, so unfortunately pre-apprentices are not eligible for this. These need to be active registered apprentices. I also see a question around youth apprenticeship. As long as they're 18 or older, then they are eligible to apply in that case. And then I also see a question around being able to log in and check someone's, your status on the application. So unfortunately, we don't have a login system for you to go and check. However, our team, if you will receive correspondence as you go through, and you will receive correspondence once you submit your application that you have submitted your application. So, as that's really what we're keeping to, is that timeline of communication. If you have questions though around your application, you can reach out to our email, and we can provide some responses.
Well, and I see a really good question around if JFF will undertake any measurement or evaluation of the program. We definitely will be. That's part of the during as folks apply to this initiative or to this fund. They are also agreeing. There's a set of questions that, and one of them being that they agree to participate in kind of a follow-up surveys and this evaluation. And so we really want to understand the impact that these funds have on the financial barriers that apprentices face. And so in doing so, it will be through focus groups or potential one-on-ones for no more than I want to say that it's about 6 months out after folks receive the funds that you should expect to hear from someone on the JFF team to do that follow-up. And we're through the application, we're also just collecting your general demographic data, just to see kind of who's receiving the funds, what across the country, what does that look like, what type of apprentices applied, that sort of thing. And then overall, just to really understand, again, the impact that this has on apprentices completing, staying within their program and completing.
I see some questions about how can this cover tuition fees, or yes, it can. It absolutely can cover tuition fees. Also, will applicants need their 671 forms for verification? Yes, they will. And do you need to include all the classes we took and need to take? No, you don't need to include that in the application, although that's really great to hear if that's something that you do want to indicate or you do feel is important.
Yeah, I would, and Christina, can I chime in? I would include that if like, for example, a course, requires you to purchase some sort of equipment or
Yes.
And that could be a potential barrier for you to complete the program, or it just causes financial strain. If it's some sort of, equipment, gear, just depending on what registered apprenticeship program you're enrolled in, that could help kind of paint the picture as to why these funds would help support your journey.
And then additionally, the question around reimbursement. So these funds treat them like a bit of a scholarship fund, right? You receive the funds, anything that you may have paid for prior, these funds will come in and potentially offset that, but see it as, $2,800 that's going to come into your bank account, or you'll receive a check that you can then use thereafter. So it's up to you if it's really around a reimbursement if you have paid for something prior, but it really is that you will just receive the funds. And again, think about it like a scholarship fund. I also see questions about eligibility around citizenship status. So ultimately, if you are a registered apprenticeship, you have demonstrated that you are eligible to be employed at a specific company. So based on that, we use that information, your 671 forms, as an apprentice to verify. So that's really our documentation that we're collecting, as well as, again, some driver's license or passport is another piece of verifiable documentation we can use to verify who you are.
I see a good question around if we have promotional materials for employers to share with the apprentices, and/or this could be for apprenticeship programs themselves. We do have a communications toolkit around this that we can also share. We can make that available along with the recording for today's webinar. One other thing to note is we're going to be taking all the questions that we weren't able to answer today and updating our FAQ section on the live on the landing page for the site, and we can share that promotional materials as well, so that folks can help us spread the word.
I also see the question around transitioning military service members participating in a Department of Defense Skill Bridge apprenticeship. Are you eligible for this? If it's registered, then yes, you are. So 18 years of age, in a registered apprenticeship program, yes, you can absolutely apply if it is registered. Sorry, Eric and I are both combing through the questions.
Sure, we're not repeating any.
Yeah. Go up. I think we got most of them. Is there any, and folks can feel free to still continue to generate your questions into the chat. We have folks on our end who are moving them into a document so Eric and I can review them. I see a question about, will apprentices need to pay back the grant if they don't complete this program? So this isn't a grant. That's just kind of one piece around it, although I can see how this could be perceived as a grant. No, you're not going to have to pay it back. But again, we are expecting a good faith effort on your end to continue forward, right? We understand that there are times where individuals do exit their apprenticeship program. However, we are attempting to fund individuals who are really committed to their apprenticeship program. So something to keep in mind. For the JFF team, okay, so I see a question, if we have an apprenticeship for CNA, do the students apply individually? Yes, they do. So in all situations, if you are joining this call as an intermediary or as a school, workforce board, employer, etc., the funds and the applications themselves the application will need to be completed by the apprentice. So please do support your apprentices in accessing these funds and applying. And we know funding will be directly given to an intermediary, a school, a workforce board, an employer. It'll go directly to the apprentice.
I think there was another question around like how many awards will be given through the fund. We are awarding up to 750 apprentices this one-time $2,800 award. And it is that amount. We don't have, I think I saw a question pop up around if there's like a lower amount that folks can apply for. It's for the $2,800 for the fund. And then there's a question here, if folks weren't registered for the program or for this event, can they receive the recording and the communications toolkit? Yes. So if you visit the landing page for this fund, all of that will be updated with the recording of today's event, the FAQs, the communications toolkit, etc. So we'll have that on the website for the fund.
So google.org, this is definitely in partnership with google.org. They are the sole source of these funds, which is why they have been an amazing partner, and also why we have really been intentional about, speaking to the value of them being a partner to JFF. So something just keep in mind that we are, of course, hoping that this type of fund is really something that is not a sole only fund that happens one time, right? We are really hoping that there's a continued investment in supportive services for apprentices. So we are hoping to continue this at some point one day in some way, shape, or form. But right now, this is a one-time event or one-time fund. And once the funds are exhausted, we will not be able to give out anymore. I see a question about it not being in a registered apprenticeship program, but in an occupational training with hands-on training. Unfortunately, it does need to be a registered apprenticeship program to be eligible.
The rubric is not included, that, that the applications will be scored against, but it's something we can discuss if that's something we can make available. Yeah, I love this comment, which is not a question, but just that the evaluation of this program will be highly valuable in helping craft government and other philanthropic wraparound supports for workforce development. 100%. Like, we're really, really excited to see the data coming out of this, and just and seeing the real life impacts that that this could potentially have on folks, and really that completion number.
Today is the launch. You can start referring students right this second. And also, I want to kind of go back to that, the not a question, but a comment. That's an important piece of what we're trying to accomplish, right? And understand is that how is apprenticeship completion really going to move with these types of supportive services, right? And we know that within education, many of us on this call, many of us that are actually behind the screen here, have received financial aid over the years to help them complete their educational journey. And without that financial aid, we would not be where we are today. So we see this as a really invaluable resource to make sure that individuals who are going through education, which is apprenticeship, as well as with that contextualized on-the-job training, which is so important to success, have access to funding to help them continue forward, right? There's nothing like this right now that exists for all different occupations. And this is the only type of fund that's available nationally that is really focused on, it's occupation agnostic. It's really focused on making sure that apprentices complete. If you are hired during the application process, so if you complete your apprenticeship program and continue into a journey worker status, you're no longer an apprentice. Unfortunately, you're not eligible for these funds. So I don't want to defer you from taking a really great job and completing your apprentice program. Congratulations on that for whoever asked that question. But just, yeah, we are looking for individuals who are in their program, and it can be at the start of your program. It can be towards the end of your program. We are not really focusing on where you are in your journey, knowing that apprenticeship programs can be from 1 year and on, right? So you could be part of a really long apprenticeship program. We're not really sure right now. But the key is that we really want to make sure that individuals who are in their programs, they're being focused on for this fund.
There's a question of AmeriCorps considered a registered apprenticeship program. I believe it is not.
I believe it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then there's another one around somebody will be officially registering for the apprentices into their program next week. Can they apply today and get documentation once they receive it? Yeah, it'll be a couple of weeks before once the folks, once they submit an application, it gets reviewed, they get communication on the status if it was approved or not. And then that's when you'll need to provide the verification that that the individuals are currently enrolled in a registered apprenticeship program.
Yes. I see the question around federally registered apprenticeship versus state registered apprenticeship. It needs to just be registered, period. Registered apprenticeship program. So as long as you are part of a registered apprenticeship program, that is really key. Yes, so if an apprenticeship provides a stipend at the completion, yeah, absolutely. As long as it's a registered apprenticeship program, regardless of how you are paid, whether it's a stipend or you are, an hourly employee, that's the most important part, is that it's registered. These are really fantastic questions. We appreciate all of you generating these questions for us. And we will have, once this is completed, the recording will be sent out, more information will be available. So please keep that in mind. I see some of the questions about where do we go? What do we do? And those are important questions, and we will have that information for you. All right. Erica, how do we feel about moving forward?
I think we're good. Again, yeah, we'll follow up. Please check the website for updated Q&As there. We'll try to filter as many that we didn't get to today on that page as well, or at least some of the common questions and themes that we saw. We'll include those, but also please feel free to reach out directly to the project team. The team should be providing a direct email that you can send any of your questions to and get those answered directly.
Yes.
Because I know, sometimes they're a little more nuanced and not so general. So we welcome all questions.
Yes. Thank you all so much for joining, and thank you, Erica, for helping us with the questions Q&A section. We hope that everyone on this call is just as excited about the National Apprentice Fund as we are. Some next steps to keep in mind: visit our landing page and learn more about how you can apply. Also, share the opportunity with apprentices in your network. Again, this is a one-time fund. Once the funds are gone, we will not have any more money to give out, unfortunately, but we are really looking forward to working with your apprentices and with your organizations on any questions you have. And join us for future information sessions and office hours that we might have. And feel free to please email us with any questions or thoughts that you have. So on behalf of JFF, Google.org, MACNY, and our many other partners, thank you for your work that you do and for helping us make apprenticeship more accessible for everyone. And I hope that everyone has a great afternoon. Thank you.